Willa's emaciated body shudders as her escape pod slams into Earth's surface. The ugly alien female, with her leathery gray skin and protruding bone ridges, gasps for air. Her sunken yellow eyes dart frantically as the ship's computer delivers a dire warning. Hydrogen female, you have 72 hours to secure genetic material from a compatible mate. Failure to do so will result in metabolic shutdown and death by starvation. The alien's translator device crackles to life, converting her guttural language to English. No, not like this, Willa croaks, her voice a raspy whisper. She fled the oppressive Hirogen society to escape an arranged breeding contract, only to find herself trapped in a new nightmare. Miles away, Billy Porter's ears prick up at the distant impact. The rugged human survivalist, living off-grid in his isolated cabin, grabs his rifle and heads out to investigate. As he approaches the crash site, the acrid smell of burnt metal fills his nostrils. His eyes widen at the sight of the alien craft, its hull still smoking from atmospheric entry. Cautiously, Billy approaches the pod. His finger tenses on the trigger as the hatch hisses open. The sight that greets him is both pitiful and repulsive. Willa's alien form lies crumpled inside, her chest heaving with labored breaths. Billy's initial disgust wars with his human compassion as he takes in her weakened state. "Christ," he mutters, lowering his rifle. "What the hell are you?" Willa's translator picks up his words and she struggles to respond. "Help. Please," she manages, her yellow eyes locking onto Billy's. Against his better judgment, Billy hoists the alien female over his shoulder and carries her back to his cabin. As he lays her on his bed, Willa regains consciousness and begins to explain her dire situation. Billy listens, his face a mask of disbelief, as she describes the unique biology of Hirogen females, their need for a mate's genetic material to trigger their digestive systems. Skeptical and wary, Billy reaches for his satellite phone. He dials Dr. Emily Chen, a xenobiologist at a nearby research facility, and an old friend. As he waits for the connection, his eyes never leave the alien form on his bed. "Emily? It's Billy. You're not going to believe this, but I need you to verify something for me." Dr. Chen's voice crackles through the speaker as she confirms Willa's claims. "Billy, if what you're telling me is true, this is unprecedented. The opportunity to study Hirogen physiology up close, it's astronomical. But be careful. The Hirogen are known to be hostile and predatory. This could be dangerous." As Billy contemplates his next move, unbeknownst to him, a Hirogen pursuit vessel pierces the edge of Earth's solar system. The alien ship's presence triggers global military alerts, sending world leaders into a frenzy of emergency meetings and strategizing. Back in the cabin, Billy faces a monumental decision: help Willa and risk interspecies conflict, or turn her away and condemn her to certain death. The weight of his choice bears down on him as he realizes the far-reaching consequences it could have, not just for Willa's survival, but for humanity's first contact with the Hirogen species. As tension mounts both in the tiny cabin and on a global scale, one thing becomes clear. The ugly alien girl must breed with a human, or she will die of starvation. And Billy Porter, isolated survivalist turned reluctant host, now holds the fate of two species in his calloused hands. Billy's mind raced as he weighed his options. The fate of the alien female, Willa, hung in the balance, and with it, potentially the future of human-Hirogen relations. He glanced at the satellite phone in his hand, Dr. Chen's words still ringing in his ears. "Emily," he said, his voice thick with tension, "I need you here. Now." "I'm on my way," she replied, the urgency in her tone matching his own. "Keep her stable. I'll bring what I can." As Billy ended the call, he turned his attention back to Willa. Her leathery skin had taken on an ashen hue, and her breathing came in shallow gasps. He approached her cautiously, still wary of her alien nature, but moved by her obvious distress. "Water," he muttered, grabbing a clean glass from his sparse kitchen. He filled it from the tap and returned to Willa's side. "Here," he said, gently lifting her head. "Drink this." Willa's yellow eyes flickered open, focusing on Billy with effort. She sipped the water gratefully, her translator device crackling to life once more. "Thank you," she rasped, her alien features contorting in what Billy assumed was pain. As they waited for Dr. Chen's arrival, Billy busied himself creating a more comfortable space for Willa. He gathered blankets and pillows, arranging them into a makeshift bed on the floor near the fireplace. With great care, he helped Willa move to the new resting place, acutely aware of her fragile state. The hours ticked by slowly, marked only by Willa's labored breathing and the occasional crackle of the fire. Billy found himself pacing, torn between his instinct to help and his fear of the unknown. The alien's condition seemed to worsen with each passing minute, her skin growing paler and her eyes losing their vibrant yellow glow. A sharp knock at the door jolted Billy from his anxious reverie. He rushed to answer it, relief washing over him as he saw Dr. Emily Chen's familiar face. She carried a large medical bag and wore an expression of determined curiosity. "Where is she?" Dr. Chen asked, stepping inside without preamble. Her eyes widened as they fell upon Willa's alien form. "Incredible," she breathed, quickly composing herself and moving to examine her patient. As Dr. Chen began her assessment, another vehicle rumbled up the dirt road to Billy's cabin. A rugged man in a dark suit emerged, his posture rigid and purposeful. Billy recognized him immediately. "Jack," he called out, confusion evident in his voice. "What are you doing here?" Jack Thompson strode towards the cabin, his hand resting near his concealed weapon. "Official business, Billy," he said grimly. "We need to talk." Inside, Dr. Chen's examination of Willa grew more urgent. She pulled out various instruments from her bag, taking readings and muttering to herself. "Billy," she called out, "her condition is critical. Without genetic material from a compatible mate, she'll die within 48 hours. Jack overheard this as he entered the cabin, his eyes narrowing at the scene before him. "That's not our only problem," he said, his voice low and serious. "A Hirogen ship has entered Earth's orbit. They're demanding we hand her over." The atmosphere in the small cabin grew tense as Jack explained the situation. World leaders were in panic mode, divided on how to respond to the Hirogen threat. Some wanted to comply immediately, while others saw Willa as a potential source of valuable information. "The UN Security Council is in emergency session right now," Jack continued, his eyes never leaving Willa. "But we're running out of time." Dr. Chen interjected, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "There's more," she said, looking at Billy. "The mating process isn't what we might assume. It's a simple genetic transfer through skin contact, but it needs to happen soon." Billy's mind reeled at the implications. He could save Willa's life with a touch, but at what cost? The weight of the decision pressed down on him, made heavier by Jack's next words. "We've got another problem," Jack said, his hand moving to his weapon. "I've got orders to bring her in, now." The cabin erupted into chaos. Billy moved protectively in front of Willa, while Dr. Chen tried to reason with Jack. "She'll die if we move her," she argued, her voice rising. "We need more time." As the argument escalated, a new sound cut through the air, the unmistakable roar of something entering the atmosphere at high speed. All eyes turned to the window, where multiple streaks of light could be seen arcing across the sky. Jack's radio crackled to life. "Hirogen drop pods detected," a voice reported, panic evident even through the static. "Multiple units heading for your location." Time seemed to freeze as the occupants of the cabin absorbed this new threat. Willa's labored breathing filled the silence, a reminder of the immediate danger she faced. Billy looked from her to Jack, to Dr. Chen, and back to the window where the Hirogen forces drew ever closer. With the threat of Hirogen troops bearing down on them and Willa's life slipping away by the second, Billy knew he had to act, but as he stood there, caught between duty, compassion, and fear, he realized that whatever choice he made would change not only his life but potentially the course of human history. The cabin, once a sanctuary from the world, now stood at the epicenter of a looming interstellar conflict. And in the middle of it all, Billy Porter found himself facing the most important decision of his life, with precious little time left to make it. The tension in the cabin reached a breaking point as Jack's hand moved towards his weapon. Billy's muscles tensed, his eyes darting between Jack, Dr. Chen, and the ailing Willa. In that fraction of a second, he made his choice. With a sudden burst of movement, Billy lunged forward, His shoulder connected with Jack's midsection, knocking the wind out of the government agent. As they tumbled to the floor, Billy's hand shot out, deflecting Jack's arm and sending the gun skittering across the wooden planks. The two men grappled on the ground, a tangle of limbs and grunts. Jack's training showed as he maneuvered for leverage, but Billy's survival instincts and raw strength kept him in the fight. "Emily, do something!" Billy shouted, his voice strained as he struggled to pin Jack's arms. Dr. Chen snapped into action, her hand diving into her medical bag. She emerged with a syringe, its contents glinting in the dim cabin light. With practiced precision, she approached the wrestling men and found her opening. The needle plunged into Jack's neck. His eyes widened in shock, then gradually glazed over as the sedative took effect. His struggles weakened, and finally, he lay still. Panting heavily, Billy extricated himself from Jack's limp form. He turned to face Dr. Chen, his expression a mix of gratitude and disbelief. "Thanks," he managed between breaths. But there was no time for further words. A weak moan from Willa brought their attention back to the dire situation at hand. Billy moved to Willa's side, his earlier hesitation replaced by unshakable focus. "What do I need to do?" he asked, looking to Dr. Chen for guidance. The xenobiologist was already setting up her monitoring equipment, her movements quick and precise. "Skin-to-skin contact," she instructed. "Remove your shirt and place your hand on her arm. The process should start automatically." Billy complied, stripping off his sweat-soaked shirt. He hesitated for a moment, then gently placed his palm on Willa's leathery forearm. The effect was immediate and startling. Where their skin met, a soft glow emanated. Willa's alien flesh began to ripple and shift, the texture smoothing out and taking on a more human-like appearance. "Fascinating," Dr. Chen murmured, her eyes glued to her instruments. "The genetic transfer is happening at an incredible rate. Her physiology is adapting, incorporating human DNA into its structure." As they watched, Willa's transformation continued. Her sunken yellow eyes filled out, the irises shifting to a warm amber. The pronounced bone ridges on her face softened, giving way to more human-like features. Her emaciated form began to fill out, gaining muscle mass and a healthier shape. Billy found himself transfixed by the process, a strange warmth spreading through his body. He could feel a connection forming, something beyond the physical touch, a bond at the genetic level. Willa's eyes fluttered open, meeting Billy's gaze. Her lips parted, and she spoke, her voice stronger than before. "Thank you," she said, the translator device barely necessary as her vocal cords reshaped themselves. The moment was shattered by a thunderous roar from outside. The cabin shuddered as multiple impacts shook the earth. Billy rushed to the window, his hand reluctantly breaking contact with Willa. In the clearing surrounding the cabin, several hydrogen drop pods had landed. Their sleek, predatory designs stood in stark contrast to the rugged wilderness. As Billy watched, the pods' hatches hissed open, disgorging heavily armed hydrogen warriors. At their head strode an imposing figure, his armor adorned with trophies from countless hunts. Commander Krell surveyed the area, his alien eyes narrowing as they fixed on the cabin. "They're here," Billy said, his voice tight with tension. "And they look ready for a fight." Dr. Chen's face paled, but she kept her composure. "We need more time," she said, glancing at her equipment. "Willa's condition has improved, but she's not out of danger yet." Willa struggled to sit up, her new form still weak but determined. "There's something you need to know," she said, her voice urgent. "About my people, about why I ran." As Willa began to speak, revealing the dark truth about Hirogen society and the mind control implants, the sound of approaching aircraft filled the air. Earth's military forces had arrived, setting the stage for a confrontation that would determine the future of human-Hirogen relations. Billy found himself at the center of it all, caught between his newfound connection to Willa, the threat of the Hirogen warriors, and the weight of humanity's first real contact with an alien species. As Commander Krell's voice boomed out, demanding Willa's surrender, Billy knew that his next actions would shape the course of events to come. Come. The tension in the air was palpable as Billy's mind raced, searching for a way out of this impossible situation. Suddenly, a sharp beep cut through the silence. Dr. Chen's eyes widened as she glanced at her tablet. "Incredible," she breathed, her fingers flying across the screen. The encrypted transmission from the Hirogen homeworld. Our AI systems have just decrypted it. Billy and Willa exchanged a confused look as Dr. Chen's face grew more astonished with each passing second. "This changes everything," she muttered, her voice barely above a whisper. Before she could elaborate, the cabin door burst open. Commander Krell, a towering figure adorned with trophies from countless hunts, filled the doorway. His alien eyes narrowed as they fixed on Willa. "Hand over the fugitive," he growled, his voice a deep, guttural sound that sent shivers down Billy's spine. Billy stepped forward, placing himself between Krell and Willa. "Not a chance," he said, his voice steady despite the fear coursing through him. Krell's hand moved to a device on his belt. "Then you leave me no choice," he snarled. In that instant, several things happened at once. Krell activated the device, emitting a high-frequency signal that filled the air with an ear-piercing shriek. Outside, the Hirogen warriors collapsed to the ground, writhing in agony as their implants reacted to the signal. Taking advantage of the chaos, Krell lunged forward, his massive form barreling towards Willa. Billy, acting on instinct, threw himself at the Hirogen commander. They collided with bone-jarring force, crashing through the cabin wall and tumbling onto the forest floor. The two grappled in the dirt, a furious tangle of limbs and snarls. Krell's superior strength was evident, but Billy's combat training kicked in. He dodged a vicious swipe from Krell's clawed hand, countering with a swift jab to the alien's midsection. As they fought, Dr. Chen rushed to Willa's side. The alien woman was undergoing another startling transformation. Her skin rippled and shifted, features morphing into a striking blend of human and Hirogen characteristics. Her eyes, now a mesmerizing swirl of amber and gold, widened in shock as she looked down at her changing body. "The genetic transfer," Dr. Chen gasped, her scientific curiosity overriding her fear. "It's triggered an accelerated evolution. Your DNA is adapting to Earth's environment at an unprecedented rate." Outside, the battle between Billy and Krell raged on. Billy ducked under a powerful swing, using Krell's momentum against him to flip the larger alien over his shoulder. Krell landed hard but quickly regained his footing, his eyes blazing with fury. "You don't understand what you're protecting," Krell spat, circling Billy warily. "She's the key to our species' survival." Billy's eyes narrowed. "She's a person, not a lab experiment," he shot back, his fists clenched at his sides. As they faced off, movement caught Billy's attention. The Hirogen warriors, having recovered from the initial shock of the signal, were removing their implants. Murmurs of disbelief and anger spread through their ranks as they realized the extent of the deception perpetrated by their leaders. Krell, seeing his control slipping away, made a desperate lunge at Billy. But Billy was ready. He sidestepped the attack, using Krell's own weight to send him crashing into a nearby tree. The Hirogen commander slumped to the ground, dazed. In the sudden quiet, the sound of approaching aircraft filled the air. A squadron of Earth's military forces descended on the scene, led by a rugged man with the bearing of a seasoned soldier. "General Marcus Steele," the man introduced himself, his sharp eyes taking in the bizarre tableau before him. "Someone want to tell me what the hell is going on here?" Before anyone could respond, Willa emerged from the cabin. Her new form, a breathtaking fusion of human and Hirogen features, caused a collective gasp from both humans and aliens alike. When she spoke, her voice carried clearly in both English and the Hirogen language. "I can explain everything," she said, her gaze moving from Steele to the assembled Hirogen warriors. "The truth about our people, about the experiments, about why I fled. It's all connected." As Willa began to recount the shocking revelations from the decrypted transmission, Billy moved to stand beside her. He noticed Jack stirring near the cabin, the agent's eyes widening as he took in the scene. To Billy's surprise, Jack didn't reach for his weapon. Instead, he pulled out his phone and began making rapid calls, his voice low and urgent as he spoke to his superiors. General Steele listened intently to Willa's explanation, his expression growing more serious with each passing moment. When she finished, he turned to his communications officer. "Get me a direct line to the Joint Chiefs," he ordered. "Tell them we have a first contact situation that just got a whole lot more complicated." As the military began securing the area, Dr. Chen approached Billy and Willa, her eyes alight with excitement. The preliminary analysis of your new genetic makeup is astounding, she told Willa. The implications for medical research, for space exploration, they're beyond anything we could have imagined. Billy felt a mix of emotions wash over him: relief, exhaustion, and a strange sense of anticipation. He looked at Willa, marveling at her transformed appearance and the strength she exuded. Their eyes met, and in that moment, he knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. As night fell, the forest around Billy's cabin buzzed with activity. Military personnel, scientists, and curious Hirogen rebels mingled, their conversations a blend of excitement and apprehension. The first tentative steps towards a new era of human-Hirogen relations were being taken, with Willa and Billy at the center of it all. In the distance, the lights of more incoming aircraft twinkled against the darkening sky. Tomorrow would bring negotiations, explanations, and the monumental task of bridging two vastly different civilizations. But for now, in this quiet moment, as dust settled over the forest, Billy allowed himself to feel a glimmer of hope for the future that lay ahead. The weight of the day's events settled over the camp as an uneasy quiet descended. As the first light of dawn broke through the trees, the makeshift encampment around Billy's cabin stirred to life. The air buzzed with a mixture of excitement and apprehension as scientists, military personnel, and curious onlookers began their day. Dr. Chen's team wasted no time in setting up a temporary research station. They surrounded Willa with an array of sophisticated equipment, their faces a mix of concentration and wonder as they began more thorough examinations of her rapidly evolving physiology. Billy watched from nearby, his brow furrowed with concern. He could sense Willa's discomfort through their newfound connection, a strange tingling at the back of his mind that seemed to pulse with her emotions. "Extraordinary," Dr. Chen murmured, her eyes glued to a holographic display of Willa's DNA structure. "The rate of adaptation is unlike anything we've ever seen. Her strength, agility, sensory perception, they're all off the charts." A gasp from one of the junior researchers drew their attention. On a nearby screen, a real-time scan of Willa's muscular structure showed fibers realigning and strengthening before their eyes. General Steele, who had been observing silently, stepped forward. His weathered face was set in grim lines as he turned to his communications officer. "Get me Captain Hawkins," he ordered. "Now!" Within minutes, a tall, broad-shouldered man with piercing blue eyes arrived. Captain James Hawkins carried himself with the quiet confidence of a seasoned soldier, his gaze sweeping the area with practiced efficiency. "Captain," Steele nodded, "I need you to assemble a security detail for our guests." He gestured towards Billy and Willa. "Top priority. No one gets near them without clearance." Hawkins raised an eyebrow, but didn't question the order. "Understood, sir. I'll handpick the team myself." As Hawkins moved to carry out his orders, Billy felt a sudden spike of alarm through his link with Willa. He turned to see her sitting bolt upright, her eyes wide and unfocused. "Willa?" he called, rushing to her side. "What's wrong?" Her voice, when it came, echoed in his mind rather than his ears. "Danger," she projected, her mental voice tinged with fear. "From above. They're coming." Before Billy could respond, a commotion near the edge of the camp caught his attention. Commander Krell, who had been restrained and guarded since the previous night's confrontation, was thrashing against his bonds. A faint beeping sound emanated from his armor. "He's activated something," one of the guards shouted. In the chaos that followed, no one noticed the tiny pulse of energy that shot skyward from Krell's suit. The emergency beacon, hidden deep within the Hirogen technology, sent its silent call into the depths of space. Light years away, on a massive Hirogen battle station hovering at the edge of the solar system, an alarm blared. Admiral Zorn, a hulking figure even by Hirogen standards, leaned forward in his command chair. "Signal origin?" he demanded. "Earth, Admiral," his second-in-command reported. "It's Commander Krell's emergency beacon." Zorn's eyes narrowed. "Prepare the fleet," he growled. "We move immediately." Back on Earth, as Krell was subdued once more, tensions in the camp continued to rise. Human diplomats huddled with Hirogen rebels, their voices a mix of urgency and suspicion. Sub-Commander Thera, the leader of the Hirogen rebels, stood before the assembled group, Her voice carried clearly across the clearing as she revealed the dark truth behind Willa's existence. The ruling class has long sought to create the perfect infiltrator, she explained, a being capable of adapting to any environment, blending seamlessly with local populations. Willa was part of that program. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Billy felt a surge of anger and sorrow through his connection with Willa. Thera continued, her voice heavy with regret. But the experiment was deemed a failure. The subjects, Willa included, developed increased empathy. They resisted control. They became individuals. As the implications of Thara's words sank in, Billy found himself drawn to Willa's side. Their eyes met, and in that moment, their mental link deepened. Memories and emotions flowed between them. Willa's fear and isolation during the experiments. Billy's dedication to protect her. Dr. Chen's voice cut through their silent communion. "This is impossible," she breathed, staring at her tablet. "Billy, your DNA, it's changing too. Adapting, becoming more like Willa's?" The revelation sent a shockwave through the camp. General Steele's face hardened as he barked orders into his communications device, calling for increased containment protocols. As the day wore on, the camp became a hive of activity. Scientists pored over data, diplomats argued in hushed tones, and Hawkins's security team kept a vigilant watch over Billy and Willa. Amidst the chaos, Jack slipped away, his phone pressed to his ear as he spoke in urgent whispers. "I need access to Project Sentinel files," he hissed. "Authorization code Delta 79er. This is bigger than we thought." As night fell once more, an uneasy quiet settled over the camp. But high above, invisible to Earth's early warning systems, Admiral Zorn's fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Cloaking fields shimmered as the massive ships took up strategic positions around the planet. In the stillness of Billy's cabin, Willa's eyes snapped open. Her mind reached out, sensing the looming threat that no one else could perceive. Through their mental link, she conveyed her vision to Billy. Sleek hydrogen warships, weapons primed, poised to strike. Billy bolted upright, his heart racing. He knew what he had to do. As he rushed to find General Steele, to warn him of the impending attack, he realized that the fate of two species now rested on his shoulders. The pieces were in place, the stage was set, and as the Hirogen fleet prepared to launch their surprise assault, the future of Earth hung in the balance. Balance. Billy's heart raced as he sprinted towards General Steele's command post, the weight of Willa's vision pressing on his mind. "General," he called out, breathless. "We have a situation." Steele turned, his eyes narrowing at Billy's urgency. "What is it, son?" Billy hesitated, knowing how outlandish his claim would sound. "Sir, Willa has sensed something. A Hirogen fleet, cloaked and ready to attack." The general's expression hardened. "That's a bold statement. What proof do you have?" "I can show you," Willa's voice came from behind them. She had followed Billy, her new form moving with fluid grace. Dr. Chen, who had been nearby, stepped forward. "General, I believe we should hear them out. Willa's abilities have been evolving rapidly." Steele considered for a moment, then nodded curtly. "All right, but this better be good." Within minutes, a hasty gathering was assembled. Military officials, diplomats, and scientists huddled around a makeshift presentation area. Willa stood at the center, her eyes closed in concentration. "The ships," she began, her voice carrying clearly across the clearing. "I can see them. 16 vessels arranged in a three-dimensional grid pattern around the planet." As Willa spoke, holographic displays sprang to life, courtesy of Dr. Chen's team. They showed Earth at the center, with ghostly outlines of ships appearing where Willa indicated. "The flagship," Willa continued, her brow furrowing, "is positioned here." A larger outline appeared directly above the North Pole. It's massive, nearly 2 kilometers in length. The audience murmured in disbelief. General Steele's face remained impassive, but his squeezing hardened as he gripped the edge of a nearby console. "Their weapons," Willa went on, her voice growing strained. "I can sense the energy buildup. Plasma cannons, gravitic disruptors, and something else. Something I've never encountered before." As she finished, Willa swayed slightly. Billy rushed to her side, steadying her. General Steele turned to his communications officer. "Get me satellite control, now." For tense minutes, the camp buzzed with activity. Technicians worked feverishly to recalibrate Earth's deep space sensors based on Willa's information. Suddenly, a shout rang out. "Contact! Multiple contacts!" On the main display, faint signatures began to appear, matching the positions Willa had described with eerie accuracy. Steele's face paled. He grabbed his comm unit. "This is General Steele. Authorization code Zulu Echo 93. Initiate Global Defense Protocol Alpha." As alarms began to blare across the camp, Sub-Commander Thera approached, her expression grim. "General, your weapons will be ineffective against their cloaking technology." "What do you suggest?" Steele asked, his voice tight. Thara's eyes glinted. "Their cloaking systems have a weakness. A coordinated electromagnetic pulse could disable them temporarily." Dr. Chen, who had been listening intently, spoke up. "We could use Earth's power grids to generate such a pulse, but it would take time to coordinate globally." Steele nodded. "Get it done. We need every advantage we can get." As preparations for the EMP burst began, the first attacks came. Brilliant flashes of light erupted in the sky as hydrogen ships decloaked, launching precision strikes against military installations worldwide. Panic spread through the camp. Billy felt a surge of drive through his link with Willa. They exchanged a glance, knowing they had to act. "General," Billy called out over the chaos, "let us help. Willa and we're changing, getting stronger. We can do things others can't." Steele studied them for a long moment, weighing his options. Finally, he nodded. "All right, we've got reports of a hydrogen ship landing nearby to establish a ground base. If you can disable their communications array, it could give us the edge we need when we launch the EMP." As Billy and Willa prepared for their mission, Jack burst into the command center, his face flushed with excitement. "I've got it," he exclaimed, waving a data pad. "Project Sentinel. They've been reverse engineering alien tech. There are prototype shields that could protect our key infrastructure." Steele's eyes widened. "Where?" "A hidden facility, not far from here," Jack replied. "I can lead a team to secure it." "Do it," Steele ordered. He turned back to Billy and Willa. "You two, get moving. We don't have much time." As they left the command center, Billy felt a surge of conflicting emotions. Fear, excitement, and something else. A deepening connection to Willa that both thrilled and terrified him. They paused at the edge of the camp, the weight of their mission settling over them. Willa turned to Billy, her transformed features softened by the moonlight. "Billy," she said softly, "if we don't make it—" He silenced her with a gentle touch. "We will." Their eyes met, and in that moment, something sparked between them. Without thinking, they moved closer, drawn together by forces beyond their understanding. Their kiss was like nothing Billy had ever experienced. It was as if their very cells were reaching out to one another, merging and evolving in ways that defied explanation. When they finally parted, both gasped for breath, feeling changed in ways they couldn't fully comprehend. "We should go," Willa whispered, her voice husky. Billy nodded, still dazed. As they set off towards the hydrogen landing site, he could feel new strength coursing through his body, his senses sharper than ever before. Behind them, the camp bustled with frantic activity. The fate of Earth hung in the balance, and the clock was ticking. As Billy and Willa disappeared into the darkness, the sky above erupted with the fierce light of battle, heralding the beginning of humanity's greatest challenge. The night air whipped past them as they raced through the forest, their enhanced senses guiding them through the darkness. As they approached the hydrogen landing site, Billy felt a surge of adrenaline coursing through his veins. His muscles seemed to pulse with newfound strength, while Willa moved with a fluid grace that belied her recent transformation. "We're close," Willa whispered, her voice barely audible. Billy nodded, his eyes scanning the area ahead. Through the trees, he caught glimpses of a massive dark shape, the grounded hydrogen ship. As they drew nearer, the true scale of the vessel became apparent. It loomed before them, a behemoth of alien technology that dwarfed anything humanity had ever constructed. "There," Billy pointed, spotting a shimmering distortion in the air around the ship. "A force field." Willa's eyes narrowed as she studied the energy barrier. "I can sense its pattern," she said, her voice tinged with wonder at her own abilities. "There's a weak point there." They crept closer, using the cover of the surrounding vegetation to avoid detection. Billy could feel his heart pounding, but his movements remained steady and precise. As they reached the edge of the force field, he placed his hand near the spot Willa had indicated. A faint tingling sensation ran up his arm as he pushed against the invisible barrier. Gritting his teeth, Billy focused all his strength into his hand. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a sound like tearing fabric, a small ripple appeared in the force field. "Now, Willa," Billy grunted, sweat beading on his forehead as he struggled to maintain the opening. Willa didn't hesitate. With a grace that seemed almost inhuman, she slipped through the gap, her form shimmering as she passed through the energy field. Once on the other side, she quickly located the field generator and disabled it, allowing Billy to join her. Inside the ship, the air was thick with an alien scent, metallic and sharp. Willa moved with an eerie familiarity, guiding Billy through the labyrinthine corridors. "This way," she projected through their mental link. "The communication array should be—" Her thought was cut short as they rounded a corner and came face to face with a group of Hirogen warriors. For a split second, both parties froze in surprise. Then chaos erupted. The Hirogen were formidable opponents, their massive frames and advanced armor giving them a clear advantage. But Billy and Willa moved as one, their actions perfectly synchronized through their mental connection. Billy ducked under a swing from the nearest Hirogen, feeling the rush of air as the alien's fist passed inches from his head. In the same motion, he drove his own fist into the warrior's midsection with bone-crushing force. The Hirogen stumbled back, clearly shocked by the human strength. Meanwhile, Willa was a blur of motion. She weaved between two Hirogen, her movements so quick they seemed to be striking at empty air. As one alien overextended, she grabbed its arm and used its own momentum to send it crashing into its companion. The skirmish lasted only minutes, but to Billy, it felt like hours. When the last Hirogen fell, he looked at Willa in amazement. "That was incredible," she finished, a small smile playing on her lips. They pressed on, moving deeper into the ship. As they neared the communication array, Billy noticed Willa hesitate near a sealed door. "What is it?" he asked. Willa's eyes were distant, as if seeing through the walls. "Information," she murmured. "Important data about us." Without further explanation, she pressed her hand to the door's control panel. It slid open, revealing a laboratory filled with alien equipment. Willa moved quickly to a central console, her fingers flying over the controls. "It's about the experiments," she said, her voice tight. "And something else. A weapon." Billy kept watch at the door as Willa downloaded the data. "We need to move," he urged, sensing danger approaching. Just as Willa finished, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. They raced towards the communication array, knowing time was running short. As they entered the large chamber housing the array, a familiar voice stopped them in their tracks. "Impressive," Commander Krell growled, stepping out from behind a bank of equipment. "But futile." Billy tensed, ready for a fight. But before either of them could move, Krell smacked his head onto a nearby console. A new alarm sounded, different from the others. "Self-destruct sequence initiated," an automated voice announced. "Detonation in 5 minutes." Krell's mandibles clicked in what might have been a smile. "Now," he said, raising a wicked-looking weapon, "let's see how you fare against a true Hirogen warrior." As Krell opened fire, Billy and Willa sprang into action. The chamber erupted into a frenzy of movement and energy blasts. Equipment sparked and exploded around them as they fought, the ship's countdown a constant reminder of the stakes. Billy managed to reach the communication array, his fingers working frantically to disable it, even as he dodged Krell's attacks. Willa engaged the Hirogen commander directly, her enhanced reflexes allowing her to anticipate his moves. With a final surge of effort, Billy completed the sabotage. "It's done!" he shouted. At that moment, Willa landed a devastating blow to Krell's head, sending the Hirogen crashing to the ground, unconscious. The automated voice chimed in once more. 2 minutes to detonation. Billy and Willa locked eyes, a silent communication passing between them. They had succeeded in their mission, but now faced an impossible choice: escape with the vital data or attempt to save the incapacitated Krell. As alarms blared and the ship shuddered around them, they knew their next decision would shape not just their fate, but potentially the course of the entire conflict. Time was running out, and the weight of two worlds rested on their shoulders. They exchanged a look of understanding, their enhanced connection allowing them to communicate without words. In a fluid motion, they sprinted towards the unconscious Krell, each grabbing an arm. 3, 2, Billy counted down as they hauled the massive Hirogen to his feet. 1, Willa finished, and they launched themselves towards the nearest viewport. The reinforced material shattered under the impact of their combined strength. As they burst through, the ship behind them erupted in a blinding flash of light and heat. The force of the explosion propelled them through the air, Krell's limp form held between them. They hit the ground hard, rolling to absorb the impact and shield Krell from the worst of it. Debris rained down around them as they skidded to a stop, the heat of the explosion singeing their hair and clothes. Billy groaned, pushing himself up on his elbows. "Willa, you okay?" She nodded, already scanning their surroundings. "We made it, but we're not out of danger yet." As if on cue, a visible wave of energy swept across the sky. The air seemed to ripple and distort, and suddenly the night was alive with new stars, hundreds of them appearing out of nowhere. "The EMP," Billy breathed. "It worked." The Hirogen ships, their cloaking devices disabled, hung in Earth's orbit like massive, menacing ornaments. For a moment, all was still. Then chaos erupted. Earth's defensive systems, finally able to lock onto their targets, unleashed a furious barrage. Missiles streaked upwards, leaving trails of smoke in their wake. Energy weapons lanced through the atmosphere, striking the now vulnerable Hirogen vessels. From their position on the ground, Billy and Willa watched as the sky lit up with explosions. Fireballs bloomed among the stars as Hirogen ships were hit, their hulls rupturing in spectacular displays of destruction. "We need to move," Willa said urgently, gesturing to the still unconscious Krell. "We have to get him and the data to a secure facility." Billy nodded, reaching for the data device they'd retrieved from the ship. As they hoisted Krell between them once more, a familiar voice crackled over their comms. "Billy, Willa, do you copy?" It was Dr. Chen, her voice tense with anticipation. "We're here," Billy responded. "We've got Krell and the data. Where do you need us?" "Bring them to the underground lab at Sector 7, Chen instructed. "And hurry. Things are about to get a lot more complicated." As they made their way through the chaos-filled night, the battle raged overhead. Rebel Hirogen ships, led by Sub-Commander Thera, engaged Admiral Zorn's forces in a deadly dance of energy beams and tactical maneuvers. They reached the secure facility just as reports started coming in of Hirogen dropships descending on major cities worldwide. Dr. Chen met them at the entrance, her eyes widening at the sight of the unconscious Hirogen commander. "Quickly, bring him inside," she urged, leading them to a reinforced medical bay. As Krell was secured, Chen turned her attention to the data device. Her fingers flew over the interface, decrypting and analyzing the information at an astonishing speed. "It's worse than we thought," she muttered, her face pale in the glow of the screens. "The biological weapon on Zorn's flagship, it's designed to target specific genetic markers. It could wipe out a significant portion of Earth's population while leaving Hirogen unaffected." Billy felt a chill run down his spine. "Can you stop it?" Chen's eyes flickered to him and Willa. "Maybe. Your hybrid DNA. It might be the key to developing a countermeasure. But we'll need more than that. We need to disable the weapon at its source." As if on cue, General Steele's voice came over the facility's speakers. "Attention, all personnel. We're initiating Operation Skyfall. I need our best special ops team ready for immediate deployment." Billy and Willa exchanged a look. They knew what was coming. Steele continued, "Billy, Willa, report to the briefing room. We're sending you to Zorn's flagship." As they made their way to the briefing, alarms blared throughout the facility. Outside, the sound of distant explosions grew louder as the battle for Earth intensified. In the briefing room, Steele stood before a holographic display of the Hirogen flagship. His face was grim as he outlined the mission. "Your objectives are clear," he said, his voice steady despite the chaos unfolding around them. "Infiltrate the flagship, disable the biological weapon, and if possible, capture Admiral Zorn. The fate of our world depends on your success." As Steele spoke, Dr. Chen burst into the room, her eyes wide with excitement and fear. "There's more," she said breathlessly. "I've been analyzing your latest genetic scans. The changes in your DNA, they're accelerating. You're adapting at an unprecedented rate." She paused, looking from Billy to Willa. "Based on these results, I believe you may be able to survive in the vacuum of space, for short periods at least." Billy felt his head spin at the implications. Before he could fully process this information, a violent tremor shook the facility. "Hirogen forces have breached Orbital Defense Station Alpha," an aide reported, rushing into the room. Steele's heart made. "We're out of time. Billy, Willa, get to the launch bay. Your stealth shuttle is prepped and ready." As they turned to leave, the door to the briefing room slid open once more. Commander Krell stood there, supported by 2 guards, his massive frame filling the doorway. "Wait," he growled, his voice weak but determined. "I can help you." Billy tensed, ready for a fight, but Krell raised his hands in a gesture of peace. "Zorn has betrayed not just your people, but mine as well," the Hirogen said. "I know the layout of his flagship, the weaknesses in its defenses. Let me assist you in bringing him down." For a moment, the room was silent save for the distant sounds of battle. Then Steele nodded. "Brief them on the way," he ordered. "Now go! Every second counts." As Billy and Willa raced towards the launch bay, with Krell providing a steady stream of tactical information, they could feel the weight of their mission pressing down on them. The fate of Earth hung in the balance, and the clock was ticking. The stealth shuttle hummed to life as they strapped themselves in. Through the view screen, they could see the chaos unfolding in Earth's orbit, a maelstrom of energy beams, explosions, and drifting debris. As the shuttle's engines ignited, propelling them towards the massive form of Zorn's flagship, Billy and Willa shared one last look. Whatever happened next would determine the future of not just their world, but perhaps 2 civilizations. The shuttle accelerated, carrying them into the heart of the battle. Ahead loomed the imposing bulk of the Hirogen flagship, their target and the key to Earth's survival. As they approached, alarms began to blare within the shuttle. "Warning," the ship's computer announced. "Enemy vessel preparing to deploy unknown payload." Billy's heart raced. They were too late. Zorn was activating the biological weapon. "We need to move faster," Willa urged, her hands flying over the controls. As they pushed the shuttle to its limits, racing against time and the vast emptiness of space, the true scale of their mission became clear. They weren't just fighting for Earth anymore. They were fighting for the future of 2 species, hurtling towards a confrontation that would reshape the galaxy. The flagship loomed ever larger in their view screen, a behemoth of alien technology that held both doom and salvation within its hull. As they prepared for their desperate assault, Billy and Willa knew that the next few moments would determine the fate of billions. As Billy and Willa's shuttle raced towards Admiral Zorn's flagship, the tide of battle suddenly shifted. Earth's last orbital defense station erupted in a series of explosions, overwhelmed by the relentless Hirogen assault. The loss of this crucial stronghold sent shockwaves through the human fleet. "Orbital Defense Station Omega has fallen," a grim voice announced over their comms. "All ships regroup to defend critical orbital assets." Billy and Willa exchanged a tense look. They knew what this meant. Their mission would now have minimal backup. "Hold on," Willa said, her hands dancing over the controls. She sent their shuttle into a tight spiral, narrowly avoiding a barrage of energy blasts from a nearby Hirogen cruiser. The void of space became a deadly obstacle course. Debris from shattered ships and spent munitions filled their flight path, while energy weapons crisscrossed the darkness. Billy's enhanced reflexes allowed him to call out threats faster than the ship's sensors could process them. "Hard to port," he shouted. Willa reacted instantly, sending their craft into a stomach-churning roll that brought them within meters of a spinning chunk of wreckage. As they closed in on Zorn's flagship, a new challenge presented itself. A shimmering energy barrier enveloped the massive vessel, far more advanced than anything they had encountered before. That's not like the one on the ground, Billy muttered, his mind racing. We can't get through that with the shuttle. Willa nodded, her face set with willpower. Then we don't use the shuttle. She pulled up the specs for their modified spacesuits on a nearby screen. Dr. Chen's words echoed in their minds. I believe you may be able to survive in the vacuum of space, for short periods at least. You thinking what I'm thinking? Billy asked, already moving to retrieve the suits. It's crazy, Willa replied, setting the shuttle on an evasive autopilot. But it's our only shot. They donned the suits with practiced efficiency, each movement precise despite the chaos unfolding around them. As Billy helped Willa secure her helmet, their eyes met. In that moment, something passed between them, a surge of connection that went beyond words or touch. Their hybrid DNA seemed to resonate, heightening their awareness of each other and their surroundings. It was as if they could feel their bodies changing, adapting to the challenge ahead. Ready? Billy asked, his voice low and steady in Willa's calm. She nodded, and together they moved to the airlock. With a hiss of escaping atmosphere, the outer doors opened, exposing them to the hostile void of space. They launched themselves from the shuttle, compact thruster units propelling them towards the Hirogen flagship. The battle raged around them in silent, terrible beauty. Energy beams lanced through the darkness, and distant explosions blossomed like deadly flowers. Billy and Willa weaved through the chaos, their movements fluid and synchronized. A piece of debris hurtled towards them, and without a word they split apart, allowing it to pass harmlessly between them before rejoining their course. As they neared the flagship's hull, Willa's enhanced senses kicked into overdrive. She scanned the massive structure, searching for any weakness they could exploit. There, she called out, gesturing to a section of the hull where several plates met. I can feel a variance in the energy field. It's weaker there. They adjusted their course, using short bursts from their thrusters to maneuver into position. Billy braced himself against the hull, his muscles straining as he began to pry at the seam between two plates. The work was grueling. Even with their enhanced strength, fighting against the vacuum of space while trying to breach a Hirogen warship pushed them to their limits. Sweat beaded on Billy's forehead, instantly freezing in the sub-zero temperatures. Willa joined him, adding her strength to his. Together they slowly widened the gap, fighting against the ship's structural integrity and their own dwindling oxygen supplies. Just as they managed to create an opening large enough to squeeze through, a burst of comm chatter caught their attention. Infiltration team, come in! It was the pilot of their shuttle, his voice tight with stress. We're under heavy fire. Multiple hits, critical systems failing. We have to pull back. Billy and Willa watched helplessly as their shuttle, carrying the rest of their team, veered away from the flagship. A final salvo from the Hirogen defense systems struck its engines, sending it tumbling into the depths of space. We're on our own now, Billy said, his voice grim. They slipped through the opening they had created, sealing it behind them to prevent depressurization. They found themselves in a dimly lit maintenance corridor, the air heavy with an unfamiliar scent. Willa's nose wrinkled inside her helmet. Do you smell that? Billy nodded, a chill running down his spine that had nothing to do with the cold of space. The biological weapon, they've already started dispersing it. As if to confirm their fears, an alarm began to sound throughout the ship. A voice spoke in the Hirogen language, but their enhanced minds quickly deciphered its meaning. Warning, contamination detected in life support systems. All personnel report to designated safe zones immediately. We're too late, Willa whispered. Billy shook his head, his expression resolute with drive. No, we can still stop this. We have to. They began to move deeper into the ship, their hybrid senses on high alert. The corridors were eerily empty, but they could hear the sounds of chaos in the distance. Shouts, running footsteps, and the occasional thud of a body hitting the floor. As they rounded a corner, they came face to face with the first victims of the biological weapon. Two Hirogen warriors lay on the ground, their bodies convulsing as they gasped for air. Billy and Willa's hybrid immunity protected them for now, but they knew they couldn't risk prolonged exposure. We need to find the source, Willa said, her voice tight, and we need to do it fast. They pressed on, navigating the labyrinthine interior of the Hirogen flagship. With each passing moment, the effects of the weapon became more pronounced. They passed more fallen Hirogen, some unconscious, others clutching at their throats in desperate attempts to breathe. As they approached what appeared to be a central command hub, Billy suddenly stumbled, catching himself against a wall. "Billy!" Willa was at his side in an instant. "What's wrong?" He shook his head, trying to clear the fog that had suddenly descended over his mind. "I don't know. I feel strange, like something's changing inside me." Willa felt it too, a tingling sensation that seemed to course through her very DNA. Their hybrid nature was adapting, evolving in response to the biological weapon. But would it be enough to protect them? And what other changes might it bring? Before they could ponder these questions further, a new sound cut through the chaos, the unmistakable whine of energy weapons powering up. From the command hub ahead, a squad of Hirogen soldiers emerged, their faces covered by breath masks. At their head stood a towering figure, his armor more ornate than the others. Even through the mask, Billy and Willa recognized the cold, calculating eyes of Admiral Zorn. "Impressive," Zorn's voice boomed through a speaker in his mask. "But ultimately, futile. You're too late to stop what I've set in motion." Billy and Willa stood side by side, their bodies tensed for action. The biological weapon continued to spread through the ship's systems. Earth hung in the balance, and now they faced a direct confrontation with the architect of this catastrophe. As Zorn raised his weapon, Billy and Willa prepared to fight for their lives and the fate of two worlds, civilizations. As Zorn raised his weapon, Billy and Willa tensed, ready to spring into action. In that instant, a shared thought passed between them. Their enhanced senses, honed by their hybrid physiology, detected a subtle shift in the air currents. Without a word, they dove in opposite directions as Zorn's energy blast scorched the spot where they had stood. Billy rolled to his feet, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to dodge a barrage of shots from Zorn's soldiers. Willa, meanwhile, used the momentum of her dive to close the distance to the nearest Hirogen, disarming him with a swift strike. "We need to split up," Billy communicated telepathically to Willa as he grappled with another soldier. "I'll handle Zorn and his guards. You need to stop that weapon." Willa nodded, her mind already racing through the ship's layout they had memorized from Krell's briefing. "The life support control room. That's where I need to go." As Billy engaged the Hirogen squad, creating a distraction, Willa slipped away into the maze of corridors. Their telepathic link remained strong, allowing them to share sensory information even as the distance between them grew. Billy fought with a ferocity that surprised even the battle-hardened Hirogen. His hybrid strength and speed gave him an edge, but the elite warriors were no pushovers. The narrow corridor became a battlefield, energy weapons discarded in favor of hand-to-hand combat. A Hirogen, twice Billy's size, charged, attempting to use his bulk as a battering ram. Billy sidestepped at the last moment, using the alien's momentum to send him crashing into a control panel. Sparks flew as alarms blared, adding to the chaos. Through their link, Billy sensed Willa's progress. She moved swiftly through the ship, encountering more and more incapacitated Hirogen along the way. The biological weapon was spreading rapidly. Willa reached the life support control room, her fingers flying over the alien console as she accessed the system. Her heart sank as she realized the extent of the problem. "Billy," she communicated, "the weapon has mutated. It's adapting to the ship's filtration systems." Billy ducked under a Hirogen swing, retaliating with a swift uppercut that sent the alien reeling. "Can you stop it?" Willa's mind raced, processing information at an incredible rate. She felt her body changing, adapting to the toxic environment. An idea formed, dangerous but potentially their only hope. "I'm going to use my DNA," she replied. "Our hybrid physiology is the key." Before Billy could respond, Willa had already begun the process. She interfaced directly with the life support system, allowing her hybrid blood to circulate through the ship's air purifiers. The pain was immediate and intense, like fire coursing through her veins. Billy felt Willa's agony through their link, nearly causing him to lose focus. He redoubled his efforts, knowing he needed to end this fight quickly. With a series of lightning-fast strikes, Billy incapacitated the remaining Hirogen guards. Only Admiral Zorn remained, backed against the command center's entrance. "It's over, Zorn," Billy said, advancing on the Hirogen leader. Zorn's eyes narrowed behind his breath mask. "You're a fool if you believe that, hybrid. I still have one last card to play." The Admiral's hand moved to his chest, revealing a small device attached to his armor. "A dead man's switch," he explained, "linked to weapons capable of destroying your precious Earth cities. Make one wrong move, and millions die." Billy froze, his mind racing to find a solution. Through his link with Willa, he sensed the biological weapon's hold on the ship weakening. Her gambit was working, but at what cost? In the life support control room, Willa fought through the pain, her body pushing itself to limits she never knew existed. She could feel her DNA changing, evolving in real time to combat the mutating weapon. Throughout the ship, incapacitated, Hirogen began to stir. The counter-agent created by Willa's hybrid blood was working, neutralizing the biological weapon and reviving its victims. Back in the command center, Billy faced off against Zorn. The standoff stretched on, neither willing to make the first move. Billy's enhanced senses picked up the sounds of confusion and movement throughout the ship as the Hirogen crew regained consciousness. "Your weapon has failed," Billy said, hoping to reason with Zorn. "Your crew is recovering. End this now before more lives are lost." Zorn's eyes darted around, taking in the changing situation. For a moment, it seemed he might stand down. Then, with lightning speed, his free hand flew to a hidden panel on his armor. "If I can't have victory," Zorn snarled, "then no one will." Alarms blared throughout the ship as Zorn activated a hidden protocol. A computerized voice announced in the Hirogen language, "Self-destruct sequence initiated. All personnel evacuate immediately." Billy lunged forward, disarming Zorn and securing the dead man's switch in one fluid motion. But the damage was done. The entire Hirogen fleet was now on a countdown to destruction. Through their link, Billy felt Willa disconnect from the life support systems and begin her race to the command center. Her body was weakened, but her purpose remained unshaken. As Willa arrived, Billy quickly brought her up to speed. They turned to the command console, their hybrid minds working in tandem to decipher the Hirogen technology. "We have minutes at most," Willa said, her fingers flying over the controls. "If we can't stop this, both the Hirogen fleet and Earth's forces will be destroyed." A commotion at the far end of the command center caught their attention. Taking advantage of the chaos, Admiral Zorn had slipped away, no doubt heading for an escape pod. Billy and Willa locked eyes, a silent communication passing between them. The choice was clear: stop the self-destruct sequence or pursue Zorn. With the lives of millions hanging in the balance, they turned back to the console, racing against time to save two civilizations from annihilation. Annihilation. Their fingers danced across the alien controls, minds working in perfect synchronization as they raced against the countdown. With seconds to spare, Willa cracked the final encryption. "Got it!" she exclaimed, inputting the abort sequence. The alarms fell silent, and the ship's computer announced the termination of the self-destruct protocol. Billy exhaled sharply, the tension draining from his body. That was too close. But their reprieve was short-lived. As the immediate danger passed, they became acutely aware of the chaos surrounding them. The Hirogen crew, awakening from the effects of the biological weapon, stumbled about in confusion. Through the command center's viewports, they could see the Earth fleet holding position, weapons primed and ready. "We need to establish communication," Willa said, her hybrid mind already processing the complexities of their situation. "With both sides." Billy nodded, moving to a nearby console. His fingers hesitated over the unfamiliar controls, but to his surprise, he found he could intuitively understand their function. It was as if the knowledge had been downloaded directly into his brain. As he worked to establish a channel with Earth's forces, Willa focused on addressing the Hirogen crew. She activated the ship's internal communication system, her voice echoing through the corridors. "Attention, Hirogen crew," she began, her words automatically translating into the alien language. "The biological weapon has been neutralized. Admiral Zorn has fled. We urge you to remain calm and await further instructions." The response was immediate. Confused chatter filled the command center as Hirogen officers turned to Billy and Willa, their expressions a mix of suspicion and uncertainty. One officer, a female Hirogen with intricate markings on her armor, stepped forward. "I am Sub-Commander Cora," she announced, her voice steady despite the chaos. "Who are you, and by what authority do you speak?" Before they could respond, a familiar voice crackled over the comm system. "This is General Steele of Earth's Defense Forces. I demand an explanation for these events. Is the threat to our planet neutralized?" Billy and Willa exchanged glances, realizing the weight of responsibility that now rested on their shoulders. They were no longer just soldiers on a mission, but potential mediators between two species on the brink of war. "General Steele," Billy responded, his military training kicking in. "This is Lieutenant William Graves. The immediate threat has been contained. We're working to stabilize the situation here." As Billy continued his dialogue with Earth's leaders, Willa found herself drawn to a malfunctioning console. Without conscious thought, she placed her hand on the alien technology. To her astonishment, she could sense the flow of data, the intricate workings of the ship's systems. With a mere thought, she corrected the malfunction, stabilizing a critical life support function. Cora watched this display with widening eyes. "What are you?" she asked, her tone a mix of awe and wariness. Willa turned to face the sub-commander, her own expression reflecting the uncertainty she felt. "We're hybrids, part human, part Hirogen, and I think we're still changing." As if to underscore her words, Willa felt another surge of sensation course through her body. Her vision sharpened, colors becoming more vibrant. She could hear the heartbeats of everyone in the room, sense the electrical impulses of the ship's systems. Billy, still engaged in conversation with General Steele, suddenly stiffened. Through their mental link, Willa felt his surprise and confusion. He was experiencing the same heightened senses, the same connection to the ship's technology. Their silent exchange was interrupted by a new voice over the comm system. "This is Dr. Chen of Project Sentinel. Billy, Willa, are you there? We're detecting unusual energy readings from your location. We need you to return to Earth immediately for evaluation." The urgency in Dr. Chen's voice was clear, but so was the opportunity it presented. Billy addressed both the Earth forces and the Hirogen crew. "We have a unique position here. We understand both sides. Let us act as intermediaries while we work towards a peaceful resolution." Cora stepped forward, her posture rigid but her voice carefully neutral. "The Hirogen do not typically negotiate with prey species, but these circumstances are unprecedented. We will hear your proposal." As Billy and Willa prepared to navigate the complex waters of impromptu interstellar diplomacy, neither was aware of the encrypted transmission pinging off a distant moon of Saturn. Admiral Zorn's escape had set wheels in motion that would soon threaten the fragile peace they were trying to build. In the depths of the Hirogen ship, loyal to the old regime began to whisper among themselves, eyeing the hybrid couple with growing hostility. And on Earth, officials pored over classified files, uncovering disturbing information about past hybridization experiments. Billy and Willa stood at the center of it all, their bodies and minds continuing to evolve in ways they couldn't yet comprehend. As they faced the monumental task before them, they knew that their decisions in the coming hours would shape the future of two civilizations, and perhaps their own humanity. As Billy and Willa contemplated their next move, a burst of static erupted from the command console. The encrypted Hirogen transmission they had detected earlier suddenly became clearer, cutting through the background noise with chilling clarity. Billy's eyes widened as he deciphered the message. "Willa, we have a problem," he said, his voice tense. "Admiral Zorn has rallied a significant force of loyalists. They're en route to Earth with a fleet of advanced warships." Willa's breath caught in her throat. "What's their objective?" "Eradication," Billy replied grimly. "Zorn sees us as a hybrid threat to Hirogen purity. He's coming to eliminate us, and anyone who stands in his way." The gravity of the situation settled over the command center. Sub-Commander Cora stepped forward, her posture rigid. "We cannot allow this to happen. The Admiral's actions threaten not only your world, but the fragile peace we've established." Billy nodded, his mind already racing through tactical possibilities. "We need to confront this threat head-on. Willa, your knowledge of Hirogen technology combined with my tactical experience might give us an edge." Willa's fingers danced over the nearest console, her heightened senses allowing her to interface with the ship's systems at an unprecedented level. I can optimize our defenses and weapon systems. If we can rally the progressive hydrogen factions aboard, we might stand a chance. Do it, Billy agreed. He turned to Cora. Sub-Commander, we'll need your support. Can we count on you and your crew? Cora's eyes gleamed with tenacity. The Hirogen pride themselves on being the ultimate hunters. It's time we hunt one of our own. My crew and I stand with you. As Willa coordinated with the Hirogen crew, optimizing their systems for the coming battle, Billy opened a channel to Earth. General Steele's face appeared on the interface, his expression a mix of concern and suspicion. General, Billy began, we have a situation. Admiral Zorn is leading a fleet of loyalists to Earth. We're preparing a counteroffensive, but we'll need Earth's forces to coordinate with us. Steele's brow furrowed. Lieutenant, I hope you understand the position you're putting us in. Trusting aliens who were our enemies mere hours ago. With all due respect, sir, Billy interrupted, we don't have time for doubt. Willa and I are uniquely positioned to lead this defense. Our hybrid physiology allows us to interface with Hirogen technology in ways that give us a significant advantage. The general was silent for a moment, his eyes searching Billy's face. Finally, he nodded. Very well, Lieutenant. We'll mobilize our defenses and coordinate with your allies, but make no mistake, we'll be watching closely. As the communication ended, Billy felt a surge of energy course through his body. He turned to find Willa experiencing the same sensation, their shared consciousness humming with newfound power. Billy, Willa gasped, I think we've reached another stage in our evolution. I can sense every system on this ship as if it were an extension of my own body. He nodded, feeling the same connection. We've become a living battle network. Let's use it. Within hours, a joint fleet of Earth forces and Hirogen ships under Cora's command assembled in Earth's orbit. At its heart was a specially modified Hirogen fighter, piloted by Billy and Willa. Their hybrid minds worked in perfect synchronization, allowing them to control the advanced craft with inhuman precision. As Zorn's fleet entered the solar system, the defenders mobilized. The space between Earth and Mars became a battlefield, filled with the flash of energy weapons and the sleek forms of dueling spacecraft. Billy and Willa's fighter darted through the chaos, their enhanced reflexes and shared consciousness, allowing them to outmaneuver enemy ships with ease. They struck with deadly accuracy, disabling Zorn's vessels one by one. As the battle raged, Billy and Willa felt another surge in their evolutionary process. Their bodies began to emit a strange energy field, invisible to the naked eye but detectable by their heightened senses. Willa? Billy called out, his voice filled with a mix of excitement and apprehension. Are you feeling this? She nodded, her eyes wide. It's like we're radiating some kind of energy. Look! As they watched, their energy field expanded, encompassing nearby Hirogen ships. To their amazement, the enemy vessels' weapon systems began to malfunction, their shots going wide or fizzling out entirely. We're interfering with their systems, Willa realized. This could turn the tide of the battle. Seizing the opportunity, Billy and Willa pushed their ship towards the heart of Zorn's fleet. Enemy vessels fell away, disabled by the hybrid's energy field. In the distance, they could see Zorn's command ship, a massive vessel dripping with weapons. We need to end this, Billy said, his eyebrows furrowed. If we can capture Zorn, this war ends today. Willa nodded, her fingers flying over the controls. I'm plotting a course through their defenses. Hold on tight. Their fighter wove through the disabled ships, dodging debris and the occasional functioning weapon. As they approached Zorn's command vessel, Billy felt a familiar presence in his mind. Willa, he said, turning to his partner, whatever happens next, remember that we're in this together. She met his gaze, a small smile playing on her lips. Always. With a final burst of speed, their ship breached the command vessel's hangar bay. As the dust settled, Billy and Willa emerged from their fighter, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead in their confrontation with Admiral Zorn.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.